6 years ago, the British went to the polls for a vote that would permanently alter the power dynamic in Europe. 52% of them chose to leave the European Union, a decision that would lead to the fall of 2 prime ministers and would divide the United Kingdom, even after the final ties were cut with the EU in December 2020. One of the main themes of the referendum was about taking back control from the European Union, in which the UK has done so by restricting immigration from Europe. However, to maintain peace with its southern neighbours, Northern Ireland has kept EU laws, allowing an open border with Europe. And despite promises of prosperity, since the vote, the UK has been hit hard economically. Whilst this is largely attributed to external factors such as the Russia-Ukraine war and the COVID-19 pandemic, the UK has had the slowest projected growth of any economically developed country. So, with 6 years of hindsight, did the UK make the right decision, or did it just cut off its nose to spite its face? Are these grim economic projections just a speed bump for a prosperous future, or a sign of things to come? Was Brexit a success for the UK?
So let's get to it. Is Brexit a success for the UK? Dear lady and gentlemen, you know the rules. You each get 30 seconds to lay out your initial stance, and we pick up the debate right after. So, Kate, please take the lead.
Well, it was just a disaster, is the short answer. I mean, first of all, I should start by saying that I don't see it as like British people cutting off their nose to spite their face. The fact is that British people were told that if they voted for Brexit, it was going to lead to prosperity. They were told that we would still be a part of the common market across the EU. They were told that it wouldn't affect business and we'd still be able to do business and we'd still be able to travel. And we were told that students would still be able to go and study overseas. And all of that turned out to be a lie. They took all of that away.
Yeah, well, we'll put a stop right here, but we will definitely unpack all those different bullet points you've mentioned in a bit. Phil, your take?
Well, first of all, I think that success is clearly subjective. As far as Britain's departure from the EU is concerned, success is only realistic within time. Let us not forget that we were actually under the shackles of the EU dictatorship, for all intents and purposes, for pretty much 40 years. During that time, getting further and further into the mire of their rules, their regulations, that just frankly weren't necessary for Britain. And after only a few years, we can't possibly expect to see all of that damage undone. So there's no doubt in my mind we are well on the way to being free to determine our destiny, and as a result of that, we will be classed as successful.
Well, last but not least, David, your take?
Look, my friends, Brexit is very much in the eye of the beholder. Just like a relationship breakup, some people will say to you, that's the best thing you ever did, and other people will say to you, that was a disaster, why on earth did you do that? One thing is clear. All the Project Fear, which warned that Brexit would lead to planes falling out of the sky, companies leaving the country, no food on the shelves in the supermarket, that turned out to be untrue. Britain continues, Britain prospers, and Britain will grow from this situation.
Well, and dear panelists, from this point onwards, please feel free to interact, and let's zoom in for a bit before we zoom out. Let's try and keep it positive and look at Brexit wins. Tampon tax, controlling borders, immigration policies. Could these be qualified as such, Kate? Question.
Sorry,
it's a question.
Did you just suggest that controlling borders was a win? I mean, it's a win for racism, yeah. If your starting point is racism, yeah, win for racism. It's the idea that human beings should be expected to not cross borders. I mean, it's just horrible, isn't it? And it's backfired enormously, because now thousands and thousands of British people who had wanted to live and travel across Europe are now unable to do so. People losing their homes, people losing their bank accounts, people being unable to get back, being unable to stay, living where they want to live, unable to retire where they want to, students unable to travel and study overseas. But also, I mean, it's just the stupidity of racism to ignore the fact that people who are migrants around the world contribute to the countries that they arrive in. They contribute economically, they contribute culturally, they are an asset where they land up. And to close those doors, I mean, it frightens me to suggest that stopping free movement might be considered a win. It's an absolute loss for everybody, for those who can't travel this way, for those who can't travel that way, and for all those who benefit from the richness of our society. It's horrible. horrible. On top of which, other wins. I was disgusted to hear one of the other panelists there referring to the EU as a dictatorship. It's more democratic than the UK is. It has a fairer democratic system in place. Every EU.
But they hide it very well, then, Kate. Look, can I just point out, so that first and foremost, I would say that where stupidity comes in is thinking that having an open border policy is somehow sensible and feasible. The bottom line is that the UK is only an island nation, and that we are not able to maintain the level of immigration that we were seeing under the EU. And frankly, so to not have that infrastructure in place to handle it, that's what strikes me as stupid. So to say that it's down to racism, hang on, Kate, please, hang on. To say that it's racism, is just such a ridiculous excuse. I'm not racist. I just want to see controlled immigration.
We will have enough time. Just let it's difficult to hear you both speaking at the same time. Yes, Kate, please.
Net contributors. They contribute more to the UK than they take out. So to suggest that the UK can't handle it, no, if you're worried about the economy in the UK, we should let in more migrants because, to repeat, and this is just a scientific fact, it's not open to debate, they are net contributors to the UK. And so when you take away that argument, because it's simply factually incorrect, what are you left with? I don't see anything except racism.
Okay, so is it factually incorrect to say that the NHS is overstretched, that people are struggling to get their children into various schools because of overpopulation, oversubscription?
So the best way to do that is to take in more revenue in taxes than we are spending. And it is migrants to the UK that do that, whereas the average British individual doesn't do that. We are negative contributors. We take more out of the system overall on average, and migrants put in more to the system. Then, which is not surprising because migrants tend to arrive after they've been through the education system and they're in a position to work and pay taxes and contribute. It's not surprising, but those are the facts. And if you're going to talk about the NHS without mentioning the fact that huge proportions of NHS staff are migrants, many of them now facing being removed from the UK, unable to continue working, new doctors, new nurses arriving from around the EU to fill those gaps, which are absolutely shocking around the NHS, now no longer able to do so. If you're worried about the NHS, the first thing that we should do is cancel Brexit and unwind it, because Brexit itself is bad for the NHS. The way that it's been done.
Out of interest, do you not find it outrageous? Kate, just out of interest, do you not find it outrageous that under the EU, an unskilled worker, right, from one of the EU countries have more right to live here than, say, a skilled doctor from the likes of, say, India or other parts of the world? Don't you find that ridiculous? Because I certainly did.
But you're suggesting the solution is to then close the doors.
But hang on. Can you please just answer? Don't you find that outrageous? Kate, please, don't you find that outrageous, though?
Kate, Brexit has happened. This is a pointless argument. Why on earth are you continuing to run the referendum? You lost the referendum. So what's the point of continuing to discuss the issues? I mean, you lost the referendum. You lost these arguments. The British people did not agree with you. The British people voted Brexit mainly because of an unmanaged immigration system, a badly managed immigration system. That's what they did. You have to accept the result. It's called democracy. The British people were given a vote. This idea that they were sold a pack of lies. They live their lives. They know exactly what an EU democracy is. They know exactly. British people know exactly what an EU democracy is, because there's a reason they hardly anyone went out to vote for their MEP. There's a reason, because they had no interest in their MEP. They couldn't even mention who their member of the European Parliament is. So this idea this is some sort of undemocratic vote, it is Kate, unfortunately, who is not being democratic, because there was a vote. People were given the choice. People were presented the facts from their own lives and from the politicians. And from the politicians telling lies, well, hell, Kate, surprise, newsflash, politicians say things that they want to win votes. That's what politicians do. We're all grown-ups. Let's not belittle the British people. They heard the arguments, they lived their life in the UK, and they made the choice. You lost the argument. Now let's make the best of it, not continue to fight the last war. There's no point continuing to fight the last war.
Yes, but let's try to get to...
Not half as disgusted as some of us are of the way the EU conduct themselves, but anyway.
Yeah, well, speaking of...
I don't really care what racists think, to be quite honest with you.
Excuse me.
Kate,
Don't,
why
I
have
hope
you
you're
called
not
him a
referring
racist?
to
He
me.
hasn't said anything
Hang on
racist.
just a second. I do hope. Kate, no. Hang on just a cotton-picking second. If you are going to hurl that kind of accusation at me, what is it founded on?
Well,
Excuse me. What is that founded on? Because I have not said anything that could be deemed as racist. I find that offensive, and I think you should retract that. No, you should retract that. Excuse me. What have I said that has come across as racist? That is just unbelievable.
Admit that migrants are net contributors to the UK. Go on, admit that, because it's a fact.
Well,
admit what? So you'll admit that it was outrageous that sort of those who are unskilled have more right to come here than, say, skilled doctors from other parts of the world. You won't admit that either, so you're not exactly innocent.
Now, what is this classism, saying that those with a particular set of skills are of more value than those with, like, what? So that's classism as well as your racism. Fascinating. Let's stick that on the
it's not classism as well.
Kate, you just maligned 52% of the population of the UK by calling them racist.
Well, there goes my question on whether it remains or whether it still is or not a divisive topic. But maybe Britons voted a yes or no, not maybe. They voted a yes or no, not on the nuances that we're now seeing perhaps playing a more significant role. Do you think that maybe a follow-up vote on the actual substance of the different Brexit articles could have eased the divisiveness we're seeing at this point in time, David?
No, because a very clear choice was given to the British people. Do you want to remain in the European Union or leave the European Union? It was a very, very clear choice given to the British people, and they made their decision. And the main reason for that decision was immigration. Whether Kate likes it or not, it simply was. That simply was the case. So this idea that...
And not to mention the money.
We should... Indeed.
Brexit,
And you know, in terms of outcome, in terms of what will happen in the future, you know, I once heard Shimon Peres quote Chairman Mao of China about the effects of the French Revolution. What would be the effects of the French Revolution? And he said it's too soon to tell.
To say, yeah.
This is a generational decision which the British people made. To judge it after the first 5 minutes after Brexit, which only really took hold maybe a year or 2 years ago, is not really fair. But the thing is, Kate, you must come on side for the sake of Britain. There's no point having this discussion. There's no point having, wishing things were different. Britain voted. Now let's make the best of it. Let's make it work.
Well, and on that note, we ran out of time for the first chunk of the debate. Obviously, we have so much more to unpack on what happened, what is happening, and what will happen, most importantly. So you're staying with us, dear panelists. Thank you for this passionate debate. The second part right after the break, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Kate Smurthwaite, Phil Dave, and David Mencer. Thank you all very much for staying with us. We're staying on topic, obviously, but let's look past Brexit into the future. Where does the UK go from here? Let's take a quick listen and pick up the debate right after.
I will do everything I can as Prime Minister to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months. But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
I will be advocating vote leave, or whatever the team is called. I understand there are many of them. I think that is basically because I want a better deal for the people of this country.
So let's get to it. Where does the UK go from here? Let's kickstart this part of the debate with another 30-second round each and pick up the conversation right after. Phil, please take the lead.
Well, where does the UK go from here? Onwards and upwards is the simple answer. We rebuild our great nation. We rework the rules and the regulations that the EU has thrust upon us, and we take back control of our destiny. We did it before the EU came along, and we will most certainly do it again. Now, there's no denying it's going to be an uphill battle ahead of us. It may take years, it may even take decades, but however long it takes, it will be short-term pain for long-term gain. There's no doubt in my mind, and I personally can't wait to see how we thrive as a result of it.
Kate, long-term gain from a short-term pain?
No, the UK is now still dealing with unresolved issues, and there's a number of them. The most obvious and conspicuous one is the Northern Ireland situation, where we cannot, without breaching the Good Friday Agreement, actually go through with the Brexit that they're pushing on the rest of us. So we are in a kind of permanent stalemate as regards that. We're also in a ridiculous situation where we're wanting to change all the rules in the UK to be different from Europe. But of course, if we want to do business with our nearest neighbours and our main trading partner, we have to stick to their rules. We can't export things to Europe without sticking to their rules. So we'll still have to live by the same rules regardless, but now we get no say in them whatsoever.
Yes, Kate, we'll make a stop right here and pick up shortly. David, your take?
Look, Britain always was an island nation and remains an island nation. Even the most pro-European person in Britain was still an unwilling European. There's a reason for that, because she has her own identity pitched halfway between the US and Europe physically. Look, Britain must continue to thrive, and it must shed its cast its net out there. You know, Plato was famous for saying that necessity is the mother of invention, and I feel confident that Britain will thrive from this.
Well, let's feel free to interact from this point onwards. It's not one speaking over the other, because we're missing the extremely important content that you're providing. My question to you, dear lady and gentlemen, does the EU want Brexit to work?
No,
of course
is
not.
the short answer to that.
Not.
Absolutely not.
No, of course not.
Look, we've already established that the EU made millions of pounds out of us on a daily basis, as indicated by the now infamous bus that said, let's get that £350 million back into our country. So, sorry,
the bus with the line. Oh, right, that bus.
Oh, the bus on the line.
You can't say,
Oh, yes, of course.
Bus when the thing on the bus wasn't true.
Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry, as I was saying, so that we now know that the EU made millions out of us on a near daily basis. So, of course, they don't want it to work. They're about to cut off a shed load of, well, they've already cut off, frankly, a shed load of their money. So, no, they're not going to make this easy for us. It's basically the same, frankly, as going through a very messy divorce. As far as I'm concerned, the EU is being an unreasonable ex-partner. They don't want us to succeed on our own because it's not in their best interest. But, frankly, being on our own is most certainly in ours.
But from this point, when there's no going back to an extent, all those hurdles posed by the EU, or at least the hurdles that are being argued to be put forward on behalf of the EU, what are they good for, David?
What's the EU good for? Well, the EU should continue to look after its existing members. The EU should continue to look after its existing members. They've got a role to play, certainly, in Ukraine. They've got a role in pushing back an expansionist Russia.
I was not suggesting the EU is obsolete, but rather perhaps the hurdles it is posing when it comes to actually making a Brexit work, so to speak. Kate, and another element here is not just externally, even though perhaps you would like to address the U.S. trade deal that was promised to Britons that didn't really take place. You alluded to that a bit earlier in the debate.
I mean, the promise, yet another false promise that we were made was that when Brexit happened, there'd be all these amazing trade deals with other places around the world. And I mean, firstly, it's irresponsible for those to be the best trade deals that we have, because they're with places that are much, much further away geographically. And simply from a climate change perspective, we should be perpetually exporting all of our goods to Australia and America, when it makes so much more sense to be exporting things to our nearest neighbour, who in some cases is less than 30 miles away. There's all sorts of reasons why that's a bad idea, but it's also simply the case that these much vaunted trade deals simply didn't come through. We had more power to negotiate trade deals when we were part of a big bargaining collective called, you'll be surprised to hear this, the EU. We've got deals with various places around the world, but very few of them look anything like as good as the deals that the EU
What is the point to rerun the campaign? I don't understand what Kate's point is. What is the point? Britain is not going to go back into the EU, so why not have a more positive outlook and make the best? You are a British person. You are a British person. You have your voice through the ballot box. What's the point of rerunning the discussion?
I don't think it's going to happen. Do you know what? I think that we should
referendum has
maybe be a little bit more magnanimous in defence.
Why do you continue to fight the referendum? Kate, you lost. You lost. I'm not saying how I voted. I might have voted to leave or remain. But Kate, you lost. So what's the point to keep going on about, well, I did warn you about X, Y, and Z. The point right now is for Britain to make the best of the situation which it's in.
And speaking of the ballot, dear panelists, we are nearing the end of the debate, unfortunately. Domestically speaking,
I'm not entitled to my opinion. I most certainly am.
Entitled to. But why are you fighting the referendum again? What's the point of fighting the referendum again?
Said you weren't entitled to your opinion. As far as I'm concerned, most of this debate has been taken up with your opinion with the greatest amount of respect. But as far as the trade is concerned, what I don't understand is, Kate, please, what I don't understand as far as a trade deal with the European Union is concerned is why on earth would we make ourselves exclusive to the EU when there is a big wide world out there? That does not make economical sense at all.
The EU had trade agreements with loads of places around the world.
Yeah, but under a one-size-fits-all, so to speak. Yeah, again, dear panelists, we're nearing the end, and I would really like to get your input on how it is affecting domestic politics. Johnson was elected over the Brexit ticket. What's next? How will it further divide Britain? Will it bring it closer? Take the lead from here. You're doing it better than I am.
Who did you ask? You asked me.
Yeah, David, take the lead.
Yeah, okay, so, certainly for Boris Johnson, this has been a great success, Brexit, because Boris was not a Prime Minister, and now he is, and has been for the last number of years. But the point is that Boris is running out of road. The reason he won all these Labour seats was for Brexit. Now Brexit has happened. I think that the magic tricks from his special box are no longer present, and I think his shine is starting to come off.
Yeah, Kate, final remarks, please. Phil, okay, final remarks.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that Boris is not obsolete by any stretch of the imagination just because of his Brexit done policy. As far as I'm concerned, he's possibly obsolete because of the appalling way in which he's conducted himself throughout his premiership. So I don't actually believe that whether or not he got Brexit done or not is as a result of the so-called red wall starting to crumble.
Kate, your final thoughts?
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that a part of Boris's appeal, and I find that a very strange term to use when you look at the way that he's behaved recently, but was that he was going to bring in Brexit and that it was going to be beneficial for communities around the UK, particularly in the so-called red wall areas. Now it's happened, and it's not beneficial. Quite the opposite. We have the worst GDP growth of any developed nation. They're blaming it on Ukraine. They're blaming it on the pandemic and so on and so forth. But the fact is, a chunk of it lies at the feet of Brexit. And regardless of where it comes from, the fact is, promises he made are not being fulfilled, and I don't think he can expect that support to continue. Well, the question is, have we got somebody else lined up who can do a better job? And it worries me that I don't see a lot of optimism there, but I hope that we can find someone.
Well, the debate, I'm not sure about Brexit, but the debate will definitely live on. Kate Smurthwaite, Phil Dave, and David Mencer. I cannot thank you enough for this passionate debate. Thank you very much.